It's 5 years since Jurgen Klopp effectively burst onto the European scene, steering an unfashionable Borussia Dortmund into the Champions League final. They didn't win, at least it wasn't down to a goalkeeper metaphorically shoving his contract into a shredder, but it could so nearly have been Manuel Pellegrini thrust into the spotlight that year. In the battle of the underdogs, were it not for two last-minute goals that somehow rescued Dortmund in the second leg of their Champions League quarter-final, Malaga would have been advancing to the semi-finals that year. Let's take a look at their starting 11 from that crazy 3-2 loss at the Westfalenstadion. Willy Caballero. You'd wonder if Willy Caballero remembers what it was like to be needed and valued. I mean, at a football club, I'm sure his wife and kids like him. Caballero spent 3.5 successful years as Malaga's number one, before then following Manuel Pellegrini to Man City in 2014 to sit on his arse for a bunch of money. And then last summer, no doubt having got bored of warming the bench for Claudio Bravo, a man with reflexes like spaghetti, he was given the opportunity to sign for Rafa Benitez's Newcastle, where I'm pretty sure he would have started. Considering the Spaniard's desperation to sign a keeper, I'm pretty sure he was getting close to chucking a mannequin in goal ahead of Darlow and Elliott. But no, Caballero chose Chelsea and is happily raking in the pounds as Thibaut Courtois' understudy. 25 league games since May 2014. Says it all really, Willy. Jesus Gomez. Speaking of Newcastle, the Magpies thought they were signing a superstar when they drafted in this fella last season. Stuck in the championship, they were acquiring a man who just played in a Champions League final with Atletico Madrid. And let's not forget that run with Malaga 3 years earlier. Well, James barely got a kick, with DeAndre Yedlin relegating him to the reserves. He has played 10 times in his last 2 seasons for Newcastle. He'd played 37 in his previous 2 for Atletico. I don't get it either. Martin Di Michelis, another Malaga old boy who Pellegrini dragged with him, with Martin Di Michelis linking up with Man City just 6 weeks after signing for Atletico Madrid. Jesus, you'd swear Pellegrini was his boyfriend. Di Michelis was very hit and miss. When he was good, he was okay, but when he was bad, he was on the verge of getting chased out of the city by a Mancunian mob. The 37-year-old hung up his boots in 2017 at Malaga. Sergio Sanchez Ortega. Considering Sergio Sanchez Ortega doesn't have a cap to his name, it's fair to say this was a fairly unsung hero of that Malaga side. The Spanish defender went on to Panathinaikos in 2015 and then Rubin Kazan in 2016. He spent last season on loan at Espanyol. Vitorino Antunes. Vitorino Antunes has been around the block. Sure, he's at Roma between 2008 and 2012. The experienced defender is currently playing as trade at Dynamo Kiev after spending last season on loan at Getafe. Hope he's having fun. Ignacio Camacho. Ignacio Camacho, proud owner of the one cap for Spain. Calm down lad, Albert Luque is 17. He was a tough tackling defensive midfielder, snapped up from Atletico Madrid in 2011 and ended up signing for Wolfsburg in 2017 for a fee of 10 million euros. And that's where he remains. Jeremy TOULALAN. Jeremy TOULALAN, the man who either ages twice as fast as normal human beings or just suffers from a chronic case of dandruff. Should probably have signed for West Ham last season, at least someone there could have hooked him up. The Frenchman was always rated highly during his 5 years at Lyon, linked with Arsenal virtually every summer. Then again, what midfielder wasn't when the likes of Denilson were getting in the team? TOULALAN spent 2 years at Malaga, signed for Monaco in 2013 before signing for Bordeaux in 2016. Joaquin. Remember Joaquin? No, not the guy whose brother OD'd outside a pub. The Spanish winger Joaquin was billed as the next big thing during the early 2000s, during his time at Real Betis and then Valencia. I'm still waiting for him to live up to that billing because for a man with over 50 caps, he sure doesn't have anything to show for it, apart from 2 Copa del Rey medals. I'm sorry lad, but that's like Robbie Keane crying over the League Cup in 2008. Relax Rob, they probably made that trophy out of paper mache. Joaquin spent 2 years at Malaga before moving to Italy in 2013 via Fiorentina. He's currently back at Betis at the age of 36. Duda. In total, Duda, a thoroughly impressive Portuguese winger of 18 caps, spent 13 years at Malaga for some bizarre reason. Having spent 5 years at the club between 2001 and 2006, he returned in 2009 and stayed until 2017, where he hung up the boots at 36 years of age. Bet he never thought back in the early days that he'd one day be playing with the likes of Ruud van Nistelrooy, Javier Saviola and Salomon Rondon. Admittedly, probably wouldn't have cared about the last one. Isco. Hands down the best player in this list bar none, and he's still not guaranteed a spot at Real Madrid. Isco is a talent and he has had to fight for his future ever since signing for Real Madrid in a 30 million deal in June 2013. Crazy to think next season will be the 26-year-old 6th at the Bernabeu. He has more medals than he knows what to do with, and despite looking like a long lost son of Harry Redknapp, we shouldn't see any wheeling and dealing when it comes to this man's name in the transfer window. Julio Baptista. Alright, hands up. When Julio Baptista was lumbering around the Premier League pitches in 2006, looking like the honey monster after 6 bowls of cereal, who would have seen him on the verge of a Champions League semi-final 7 years later? To be fair, Baptista's career had petered out long ago. Remember when he'd smashed 38 league goals in 2 seasons for Sevilla and everyone predicted he'd be the next Adriano? Well, they were right. He wouldn't hit double digits in a league season ever again, and he still had 8 more years left. He retired at the end of the 12-13 season, and some say he can be found lurking in a Brazilian swamp, watching reruns of those 4 goals he scored at Anfield at one time. Probably best to give the rest of your Arsenal games a miss, lad.